Welcome to 28 and Searching. I'm your host, Samantha, and today I have Heather Gobet with me. Thanks for coming on my show, Heather.
Thank you. I'm excited about the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you currently residing? How old are you? How many years have you been in your industry? That sort of thing.
I'm 46 years old, and I live in a community about 25 miles south of Portland, in between Canby and Oregon City, in a somewhat rural area. And I own and operate Western Display Fireworks, and I'm the fourth generation of our family to do so.
Wow. Okay, so it's definitely a family business. It's you've probably been messing around in it since you were young.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, and what is it exactly that your guys' business that your business does?
What we do is we actually provide full service pyrotechnic productions. So whether it be a wedding or a fireworks show at the end of a baseball game, or something as big as the Seattle Seafair Summer 4th, we produce those types of events, and we do all the design, the insurance, the permitting, provide the labor and the transportation. And so a client can make one call, and we basically, whether it be like I said, a small private event or something the scale of Seafair, we produce it start to finish.
Okay, cool. And so, um, this may sound a little bit naive because I don't know a whole lot about the business. But when you're doing that, are you purchasing the fireworks, or are you guys also creating the fireworks where you're at?
We actually purchase all the fireworks. There's very few fireworks manufacturers left in the United States for an abundance of reasons. But we purchase the fireworks, and then we design the productions, and then package them, or in a lot of cases computer choreograph them, and then send out fully packaged productions.
Okay, and so what are you guys? Would the job titlings be like pyrotechnics? Is that what you guys are considered?
Yeah, our company would be considered a display fireworks company, and that means that we do the public displays. The other side of the fireworks industry is consumer fireworks, and those are the companies that sell to the general public for their own use, and ours is more of a professional grade of fireworks that's only handled by licensed professionals.
Okay. And so give us a little bit of a background because you're fourth generation. I'm sure you guys got a lot of history going on with this, and it's very unique what you do. What's the story kind of behind this?
The story is my great-grandparents founded the business in 1948, and they were farmers in the Canby area, and their primary crop was medicinal herbs, which they would export to China. And so their two main herbs they grew were ginseng and golden seal. And so they would export these crops to China. And one year, their Chinese customer suggested, I don't know if it was out of need or just it was something that they thought was a good idea, and so they suggested trading fireworks for a portion of the monies that were owed to my great grandparents. And so that year they took fireworks in trade, and that's where the business started, and then it's grown from there.
Okay, that's very cool. That's a very interesting little factoid for you. So that's how was it growing up? Did you know you were kind of being groomed to take over the business, or was it something that came later in life where you decided to do that?
I guess I always knew that this is probably where I would end up. The business has actually been passed down through the women in the family. So it was my great grandparents that founded it, and then it was their daughter, my grandmother Patricia White, that her and her husband took it over, and then my mother and my father then took it over, and then now me. So it's come down through the women in the family, and it was just my sister and I, and she didn't have any real interest in the business, and so I kind of always knew that if it was going to continue, which I felt very committed to, that it would kind of be my destiny eventually.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. And so I'm assuming for you, since since it's a family business, you wouldn't need a degree for it. But let's kind of look at like the people you employ. When you're talking about people dealing with large displays, or is there any sort of schooling or training that's necessary to for those employees?
Yeah, absolutely. There's really kind of two paths. And the first path is the path to being a licensed pyrotechnician. And so every state, or virtually every state, has some sort of requirement of schooling and experience, and oftentimes letters of recommendation that they require that an individual have in order to be a licensed pyrotechnician and operate a show. And then there's another level of criteria that's actually oftentimes experience. And so perhaps maybe you're a licensed pyrotechnician, but then you need a bunch of on-the-job training to get to the point where you're running a complex computer show. And so we kind of handle both those things. We do the licensing training, and then in addition to that, through experience and opportunities to work on shows, we provide people with those opportunities to learn and kind of get to the highest threshold of what they're interested in doing. And for some people, it's shooting their small 4th of July show for their community in rural Eastern Oregon. For other people, they're very interested in the technology, and they are interested in, being involved in some of the largest displays in the United States. And so then they kind of come up through the ranks and get to the point where they're running some of our large computer choreographed displays.
Okay, and so this kind of sounds a little bit naive because I have never done it. I mean, I've viewed them and they're beautiful, but I have never even been close to backstage for these types of things. So it's all essentially programming. It's all computer oriented now.
For the most part, there's really three different levels of automation in the displays or technology. On the 4th of July, there's still a number of communities that still rely on hand-fired displays, and basically it's their local fire department or people that we've trained that go out and they put an individual mortar that each one of the shells goes in, and they fire them basically using a highway flare. And so there are small communities all over the country, basically, that still employ that means of firing their fireworks displays. And on the night of the 4th of July, the firing systems are at such a premium that they have to kind of be relegated to some of the bigger shows. So these smaller shows that allows them to still have fireworks without tying up a firing system that might be worth twice as much as the total cost of their display. So that's one level of display. And the next is electrically fired displays, where there is an item called an E-match that's attached to each shell, and there's an electrical firing panel, and the technician they're not manually igniting the shells, but they're flipping these switches on the panel, and that's what's causing the shells to fire, and they're oftentimes 100 plus feet away when these items are going off. And then the uppermost level are the computer choreographed shows, and that's where they're all choreographed to the 1/100th of a second, and basically designed by computer and then fired by computer.
That's amazing. I mean, and to think that you're fourth generation, how much it has changed in 4 generations for fireworks, right? I'm sure that's pretty outstanding.
Yeah, what's interesting is a lot of the techniques and the production of the items themselves hasn't changed as dramatically as the technology used to design the shows and fire them.
Yeah, crazy. So if somebody's looking, since this is so unique, what if somebody's looking to get into this, what's a good starting point for them to begin at?
We have so many people that when they do get involved, they're like, where have you been my whole life? I love fireworks. I'd love to have an opportunity to do it, professionally, or, at least, a couple times a year professionally. And so the process is that we have a website that people can go to, and they can learn a little bit about our company. And there's also a bunch of information about training classes that we do. And we do a series of training classes each year. And so an individual can contact us and kind of learn about how the whole process works. And then a really good first step is to come to that training class and learn about the industry. And then from there, we integrate them in some of the crews with our more experienced people and kind of get them involved in that way. And then usually they are a part of a crew for, one or several years, and then go about getting their license. And then oftentimes they're responsible for doing their own show. So that's kind of the path.
Okay. And so you kind of have twofold here, right? Because you're a business owner and you're a business owner in a unique industry. So if you're talking about personality traits, what are the personality traits to both be an owner in this industry and the personality traits you look for in employees in this industry?
I guess to start with the employees, there's the ability to handle pressure and make good decisions under pressure. Some of the events that we're involved in are extremely, extremely high profile, and they're, watched by hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And so having kind of the presence of mind to conduct themselves in that realm is very important. And the ability to multitask and handle a lot of things simultaneously. We do about 70% of our total annual business on one night of the year. And so being able to kind of project and plan for that one night and then help orchestrate that one night is really, really important. And I would say probably those traits are very similar to what it takes to run this business as well. And just probably at a little bit higher level where you're dealing with even more unknowns and even more pressure. But it's kind of the same thing whether you're running the business or running one large show.
Sure. And so this is kind of a side question, but as being, an inheritance to a business of four generations of your family, well, have you had to do any like morphing of the business since you've taken over to kind of channel it into the current century, or is it kind of run the same way and it's just kind of, easy flowing in that, in the foundation of it, or have you had to make a bunch of arrangements?
I think the change has been, there's definitely been changes and there's definitely been a metamorphosis, but it's been I would say somewhat of a gradual process. When my parents, from my grandparents to my great grandparents, there were certainly changes, and then there were some significant changes from my grandparents to my parents, where that's when the electrical firing had started, and then the real threshold of the computer firing. And then with respect to what we're doing now, the technology and being on the cutting edge of that, we have some firing systems that we've invested in. They're the best of the best of the best in the world. They're, what's used to fire the Olympics and the most prestigious competition shows in the United States. And that's what we use for the Seattle Seafair Summer 4th. In addition, I think that as the world changes and we run into, geopolitical issues with production in China and things like that, that they're just being aware of those things is very important. And lastly, we've really made, and this is, I think, probably been my thumbprint on the business so far, is we've reached out to some of the premier fireworks companies in the world, and we've gone to the international symposiums and these international competitions and really tried to draw the best of what's available worldwide and apply that to our shows here in the Pacific Northwest.
Very cool. It's just amazing to listen to because I don't think people ever really think about what goes into it. You see fireworks and no one thinks, oh, I can do this professionally, but it's absolutely true that you can. So what is the part of your personality? What's the one thing that you think has lended well to this business?
Uh, I think my appreciation for fireworks as an art form. I've always been interested in art and architecture, and never really done anything professionally, or probably even had um, the talent to do those things professionally, but just always had a real appreciation for excellence in those areas. And so being able to appreciate fireworks as an art form, and see that in what we do, and see that in what our suppliers and some of our colleagues in the industry do, that I think that's probably one of the main things that lends my skills to this business.
Yeah, and do you guys get to like help design the actual shows? I'm assuming you would, but I mean, there's not like a template, right? You guys design all the ways that the fireworks go about.
Yeah, every single show, from the smallest to the largest, is custom designed for the venue and the budget. And then when you get into some of our larger computer choreographed shows, the client will provide a musical program, and then we develop a fireworks program to be choreographed to that musical program.
So it's very, I mean, this is your art. This is very much your art. So what are some personality traits on the other side of it that you think might not what's the one personality trait you think is not going to lend well to this business?
Um, I tend to worry about everything and try to forecast and control and solve problems before they exist. And in some ways, that's served me well in this business. But there are so many factors in play that are completely out of our control that you can take that to an extreme where you make yourself crazy. And sometimes I sometimes I tend to take it to that extreme.
Sure. And so I'm assuming you guys are at the top of the ladder when it talks about fireworks, since you guys do such large events. Is there a step higher, or are there steps lower that maybe people can start out at?
With respect to what we do, if somebody was interested in being involved in fireworks, we do everything from, like I said, the smallest community, most entry level shows. And so we can find a home for whatever a person's aptitudes and interests and experience level. So, with respect to somebody wanting to be involved with our company, we certainly have, the opportunity for, all different walks of life and interest levels to be involved in what we do. As far as fireworks companies in general, there are a few just very, very, very large companies within the United States that do things worldwide, and we're not quite in that stratosphere. And then there's another level of companies that are regional and do an excellent job within their region, but just have chosen not to reach out too much further. And then there's a whole bunch of smaller companies that oftentimes are kind of operating under the radar, and a lot of times they start up and they go away, and they start up again with a different person. And so that's that's the kind of the other element of the business. But I would say, we're kind of in that just below the highest stratosphere, and we're really proud of the job we do here regionally.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what's the job market like for pyrotechnics? Is there ample opportunity? Are you guys struggling to find people interested, or is there so many people interested that you don't have enough jobs, or what does it kind of look like?
We have a handful of full-time employees, and those are oftentimes people that started as pyrotechnicians. Some of them are family members, that sort of thing, and they work here full-time, and they're part of all the processes that a lot of times in the background aren't real glamorous to execute these displays. And then the other main job title is the pyrotechnicians, and we're always looking for people to be a part of these displays. And what we find is that most people just they don't even know the opportunity exists, or they don't know how to get started. And, pyrotechnics is a job that just a very, very small handful of people do full time, but we have so many people that do it part time, and it's one of the things they're most proud of. And you look at our pyrotechnicians Facebook pages, and they may do one show a year, but all their pictures on their profile are them doing their fireworks show, or them with fireworks in the background. It really becomes a big part of who they are, and I think what they're proud of about what they do.
Okay, so would that be one of the drawbacks? I mean, is it more of a part-time gig for a lot of people, and that's kind of where that's where it sits?
Yeah, it for the vast, vast majority of people, it's something they do once, maybe twice a year. And so that, I would say that, 95% of our pyrotechnicians do one or two shows a year. And then we have kind of another threshold of people that drive for us and maybe do multiple shows. But especially in this market, due to weather and a bunch of other factors, there's kind of a window of opportunity, and it's something that's more a 1 or 2 day a year fun thing to do.
Okay. And so when you do those one to 2 days, is it like a paid thing, or is it a volunteer thing? Is it what does that kind of look like?
All of our pyrotechnicians are paid. They're all W-2 employees, and they work for our company as employees, so they're covered under workers' compensation, and so everybody's compensated. Nobody gets wildly wealthy doing it. It's, like I said, it's a 1 or 2 day a year event, and then oftentimes we provide, lodging. We provide monies that people, like a per diem, where people can go get picnic food for their crew or their family. And we have a lot of families and groups of friends that kind of do this as, they work hard to set up the show, but then they make it fun. They have a barbecue or a picnic, and they all hang out together, and then do the fireworks show. So it's become a big tradition for a lot of people.
Okay, so if you are looking to become full-time, or at least try this out to see what it looks like, there are the opportunities to kind of step your feet in, try it out, do it for the 1 or 2 day shows, and then see if it's really something you want to pursue to try to get those very coveted full-time positions.
Yeah, I would say, that there's always an opportunity to come to one of our classes. We put those on free of charge, and usually the first 2 weekends in March. And that usually gives people kind of an insight into the industry. And if after that they're still interested, then they can take part in a display. And usually 9 out of 10 people, they are involved in one display and they absolutely love it. They're hooked, and they do it for years and years. And then there's 1 out of 10 where like, wow, this is a little intense for me. I don't know if I want to do this, or this is really hard work. And so, they'll opt not to be involved and just want to go be a spectator. But the vast majority of people, once they're involved they're hooked.
Okay. But this is something that is full-time for you as the owner of the business. You're running it full-time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. It's year round, full time. And then.
Okay, so it is a possibility. It's just more the opportunities tightened the more towards full time you want to get.
Exactly.
Okay, so what has been the worst day of your career thus far?
I can't really think of one worst day. I would say the 4th of July every year is the best of times and the worst of times, all in one day. And it's the culmination of a year of work, and, you just care so deeply about every single one of our clients. We're doing close to 200 shows that night, and you're exhausted. And all you, on one hand, you just want it to be over. And then on the other hand, you want to really kind of revel in each one of the shows going off and going off successfully. So I would say that, really every year that the 4th of July is the best and worst all in one.
Okay. Okay. And so what are some of the benefits of doing this, either full-time or part-time?
There have been so many occasions, and I have to remind myself of this, um, just so I can make sure I continue to appreciate it, that we've been in some of the most beautiful locations in the Northwest, and had some of the most amazing experiences. And so I really try to always be aware of that. We do several shows out in the San Juan Islands, and we did a private party out in the San Juan Islands, and we rode this landing craft from Anacortes out to Roche Harbor, and all the way out there, we're weaving through the San Juans, and we're, seeing all kinds of wildlife, and it was just, it was this wonderful experience. And then, we shot this display, and then that evening, all, stayed in Friday Harbor there and had a lovely dinner and a nice time together. And so, there are hundreds and hundreds of experiences like that I can point to where you're, involved in these incredible sporting events or at these, wonderful venues or just, you name it. And we're very, very fortunate to be able to be a part of these great events and be a part of these, these beautiful places.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would imagine that you have been um, present at a lot of great things that a lot of people don't get to see. Um, for you as an owner in this business, is there a lot of competition?
Um, we're very, very fortunate that after, the history and the track record that we have an amazing, amazing client base that many of them we've been doing business with, back to my, grandparents or great grandparents. And so, in some regards, there's a lot of competition. There's kind of certain accounts that tend to, maybe, change companies or go elsewhere every once in a while. But for the most part, the foundation of our business is built around these longtime customers, and they're 100% committed to us as we are to them.
Okay. Okay. And so what would you say it is that you love most about what you do?
As I mentioned previously, the artistic aspects of it and getting to design the shows and be a part of that creative process. And then I would say the other part is you see the joy that these displays bring to people. And, we've been involved in shows that we've donated to Make-A-Wish and some other, charitable organizations. And you see that, the good that can come of what we do and the joy it can bring to people, anywhere from, your normal 4th of July show and what that means to so many communities, all the way down to those types of events that we've had the honor to be a part of. And so I would just say that the response of the audience and the way people respond is probably the most meaningful part to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, kind of out towards the beginning of our conversation, you talked about how you have a sister and she wasn't really into the job. So what kind of made you say, I think this is it. This is going to be for me.
I guess I was always drawn to the business and kind of the entrepreneurial aspect of it. And I was very, very close to my grandmother, and she loved the business. And I just felt very committed to continue it in her memory as well.
Okay, so part of running a family business, I would assume, is the history, right? So there's a lot of pride there that kind of propels you. So it's not just the love of your job, but it's also the love of your family and the history that they provided you.
Absolutely. I would say pride and pressure, because
Yeah.
you just don't, you don't take it lightly, and you realize that, you don't, after after almost 75 years, you don't want to be the one to mess it up.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I can imagine. I mean, that would be the difference between starting something fresh and taking something on, right? Because
Exactly.
I mean, they both have their own consequences of whatever happens, but I mean, you have a legacy, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. And so, have you had other jobs beside this one? And if so, what one would you say prepared you most to be the owner of this job?
I worked here and I worked in various aspects of the business up until I was about 22 years old. And then my parents were still quite young, and I decided to pursue other things and kind of give them some space and give myself some space to develop a career of my own. So I worked in real estate development and was in project management for a local real estate developer here in the Portland, Vancouver area, and did that for a number of years. And I would say that prepared me in many ways to run this business. The magnitude of some of the projects we were doing, and the pressure to perform, and having to, as a project manager, multitask and be involved in everything from the condominium, the legal aspects of the condominium documents, to the choosing the finishes on one of the homes, to, the marketing efforts. And so that job was really very, very multifaceted. And so it did in many regards prepare me for this.
Okay. And so currently, do you have any expansion plans for your business, or and how are you looking to move towards those?
We grow a little bit every year, and my main goal in operating this business is to continue to constantly improve our service and our displays that we provide to our current customers. If we were going to make a major expansion there, we could move into California or other states, but I guess I'm very happy with how our business is now. And we, like I said, we have the opportunity to grow and develop more off-season business and things every year. But at this point anyway, we just really want to focus on continuing to improve what we're doing here regionally.
Sure. And, by taking the customer base that you've had for so long, it's important to keep providing them, the best that you can, right? So I can understand that being a focus.
You hear stories, in our industry, a lot, and then in every industry where people just, they reach a little too far, and I'm just very cognizant of that I want to, take care of what we have. And then if in the future we have an opportunity to expand our customer base and the geographic area we serve, then we'll take it at that time. But we just want to make sure that we're doing the best job possible for our current customers first.
Sure, absolutely. And uh, to kind of go back a little bit, because this came to me and I wanted to make sure I ask it, is that when you're dealing with like employees and doing all of this, fireworks are fairly dangerous. So is there a lot of concern for safety or insurances or different kinds of matters like that?
Oh, absolutely. Insurance is a huge part of our business, and something we focus on providing the best insurance for our customers, and coverage for our employees. It definitely is something where there is an element of risk, but we've been very, very fortunate that we have an impeccable safety record, and if safety protocols are adhered to, the risk is very, very minimal.
Okay, so it seems a lot more dangerous because you've seen, your Uncle Ted, or, at home doing ridiculous things, firing Roman candles at each other. But when you're talking about on your level, it's going to be quite a bit different.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, so nobody's taking large mortars and go ahead and, firing them at each other under your watch.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, well, good. That's what I was making sure because, a lot of times people think, oh, I'm going to be able to basically play with fireworks, but it's a lot more than that when you're talking about it on a professional level.
Yeah, there's the safety element, and there's also the element that a lot of these communities have fundraised for oftentimes 12 months to put on this display. And so that's one thing we really try to uh, impart on our pyrotechnicians is that this isn't going out and playing with fireworks or doing what you want to do. This is, honoring our customers and their fundraising goals and putting on the best and most professional display that we can. And it's quite a departure from some of the backyard stuff that goes on.
Yeah. Yes, I can imagine as much. Okay, so we've kind of gone through the different things about your company and being a pyrotechnician and kind of how that all works in this unique type industry. I've just got a few more questions for you. What did you want to be when you were a kid?
I really don't remember. Um, I, I always obviously had an interest in the business and felt like someday that I would, be involved in ownership and management of this business or something else. I've always kind of had an aptitude for, the law and understanding legal documents and that sort of thing. And I guess if I was to do something that was other than this, if I would have been more disciplined, I probably would have gone into the law field.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so basically fireworks have been in your blood forever.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. And so, what is the best piece of advice you've received about business?
Try, I'm trying to think. There's been so many. Um, I think I've learned from so many people in our family and in my previous job is the respect and the appreciation for both your customers and your employees. And it really doesn't matter what industry you're in, that without either of those two groups, you don't have a business. And to always value and treat both those entities with huge respect. And that's something that I feel really committed to doing.
Okay. And so, since you are in the unique position of having a family business that you have taken over, what's something you would tell somebody who's trying to decide whether they want to take on something similarly?
I think the more that it's very difficult to separate family and business. And there's always emotions and inner workings of family relationships. I would say that the more you can have disinterested professional third parties involved to facilitate decisions and transitions, that's huge, because sometimes having that, even in the most civil conversations, having that moderator and having somebody that can offer professional advice and maybe kind of step in and bring it back to a business conversation, I think is imperative. And even in the most functional of families, it's really difficult to make that distinction. And I think oftentimes having those professionals involved won't won't just benefit your business, but it'll ultimately benefit your family relationships too.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like what I need at my family holidays. And then finally, what is one thing you would say to somebody who's currently discouraged in their job, who's looking for something they love?
I would tell them not to give up. I think two things. One, not to give up and to really search within yourself to what your passion is and what you enjoy, and figure out a way, if possible, to turn that into a vocation. And I guess the other piece of advice I'd give that I wish I would have given myself maybe 20 years ago is every job is going to have its struggles and its downsides. And sometimes, maybe looking at it differently and appreciating the good things about what you're currently doing, there maybe is a place to start. And then if you just can't get there, then really try to follow your bliss. But I think at different points in my career, if I look back now with hindsight, there were really cool things going on that I didn't fully appreciate because I was so, mired in some other negative element of the job. So sometimes the grass isn't always greener, and I think that'd be my main piece of advice.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. Well, thank you very much, Heather, for coming on with me today.
Oh, thank you. This was a real pleasure.
If you like this episode or you're looking to change your career, go to 28andsearching.com or become a patron to get exclusive content sent directly to you. See you next week.